All right, so this next technique is a very important one in watercolor. A lot of people use this even without knowing that they're doing it, but this is called negative painting, and this is how we save our light values in watercolor. So remember in watercolor that we don't use white paint. We use the white of the paper. So instead of adding white to our colors, we add water, which allows more white to show through. This is important to remember because we have times where we want to save light values, but it's hard to know always how to save them and how to be aware of saving the light values. So this one technique called negative painting is a way of working around areas and saving lighter values. So in watercolor, we work from light to dark. Remember, this is our lightest surface, and we work down to dark. Here in negative painting, you have to plan out what you want to save as a light value. So say I want to save most of this star as a light value. So what I'm going to do is paint over the rest of the area. So I have to carefully paint around it. And I'm using a watercolor pencil here. I'm blocking in the water, and I'm painting fairly light value here. This is just the pencil that's blending with the water. I'm going to cover everything else with water. And I'll add a little bit of tone to it. Adding our cobalt blue here. So what I've done is I've painted in the negative space. The positive is left light, and I paint the negative space. And what I would do is let that dry. All right, now that I have dried the paper, so one thing in watercolor, because we are often impatient and we want it to dry really fast, we use hair dryers or blow dryers to dry the paper. And now that it's dry, I can go back and paint on it. And what I'm going to do is paint around the areas, leave the areas that I want a lighter value. So you can see now I have three values in my painting. I have the light, the lightest light, the next light, and a middle value right now. And I would let those dry before I continue to make another darker value. In this case, I could make it a little bit, I could make it more saturated, but I'm going to add just a little bit of black into the paint to change the value. And let's see, I can come in here and then add my dark values. So remember, we're working from dark to light. Light to dark. So we start off by saving our lights, and then we gradually layer on the paper to get as dark as we want. So it's really a layering process in watercolor. So we're working from light and add more paint and more paint and more paint until you get to your darker values. But you always have to be conscious about saving the light of the paper.